You were sent away to boarding school aged 8. Must have been very difficult.
For me, it wasn't a choice, and it was much more a culture of like, you're left, you don't go home for, however long. We'll see you in 4 weeks' time.
Because that's just what people did who were of that class.
I don't know. I wasn't involved in the decision. For me, it was like, you're going to boarding school, and I really struggled with it. I struggled being away from home.
Do you remember that moment? Do you remember the day you were
I do. I
dropped
remember
off?
really well being dropped off, and I remember seeing my mum and dad bawling their eyes out driving away, and I remember thinking I couldn't figure out what part of nature thinks this is a good idea. I'm crying, they're crying, I'm not seeing you for a long time.
It's so young, isn't it? I have a 7-year-old, I just can't imagine sending him off.
Yeah. It was definitely a trickier time for me, and I don't think I dealt with it particularly well. I think you sort of develop survival sort of mechanisms to deal with the upset and would deal with the fear. And there were definitely sort of bullies at some of the schools I went to. And, again, I don't want to over-egg that sort of it wasn't terrible, but it had definite moments. And I think, looking back, I was too young to be able to deal with those sort of fear. And actually, ironically, I remember eventually at the end of SAS selection, you go through this resistance to interrogation phase. You're there naked, curled up in a blanket, shivering. And at the end of it, when it's finally finished, they put you with a psychiatrist and you have a chat, and he goes, it's all over, and how was it, and what are you feeling? And I said, it's weird, because I haven't felt that sort of feeling of raw fear and vulnerability since I went to prep school, age whatever. And I thought he would sort of laugh or whatever, and he goes, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that from people going through this process.
When you say you said you don't think you dealt with it particularly well, what do you mean?
Well, I think you internalise a lot of your way of dealing with fear, and it's why I became quite shy, especially in those years. I definitely went into myself a lot more and was hiding away, and you'd see people being bullied or if ever the eyes came onto me, it's be like, hide, go, escape. And I think those are survival mechanisms that you shouldn't have to be learning aged 8 or 10. And I think it's why it took me a long time to develop the confidence that not always hiding away.
Did you ever talk to your parents about it? About, like, why did you do that, or just to
I think a little bit. I mean, my dad then died, when I was pretty young after school, and I never really got the chance to ask him that. But, the thing is, he was the most lovely dad, cosy, kind, loving, and same with my mum. And I think it was, I've got to understand that was hard for them as well. And I think genuinely there's a whole generation of our age and older and before that would just thought that was how you made a man.